Hi everybody, welcome to our series from Rival Racing, So You Want to Be a Triathlete, where this presentation is all about mental fitness. And so the title of this presentation is So You Want to Be a Mentally Fit Triathlete or a Mentally Healthy Triathlete. So it's all about just the mental game of sport, which, as we all know as athletes, the mental side is huge. It's, you've heard that cliche, sports is 90% mental, 10% physical. For long endurance sports, I don't think that ratio is quite fitting, but the mental side is definitely very, very, very important. So I'm going to give you 5 short tips. This is a short video. I'm going to give you 5 tips that I think are kind of the most important things when it comes to just the mental game. So real quick, just let me introduce myself. I'm Michelle LeBlanc. I'm founder of Rival Racing, and I've been a coach with Rival Racing and QT2 Systems. Been a coach with Rival Racing for over almost a decade now. So that's me. All right, so let's get started. Top 5 tips to staying mentally fit and keeping a strong mental game as it pertains to triathlon and even running and cycling or any kind of endurance sports, or honestly, probably any sports for that matter. But number 1 is to stay motivated. Definitely staying motivated during the training. One of the most difficult things we see is athletes staying motivated during the off-season or the pre-season, or staying motivated after poor performances. So that would be tip number 1, just all about motivation. Tip number 2 would be imagery and coping tools. That's where you kind of use visualization and kind of textbook type mental fitness stuff, sports psychology stuff to just help prepare ahead of time to have a great day, to just work on the noggin and what you're thinking about, a little bit of self-talk. A little bit of just imagery and how to deal with setbacks and issues as you go. Number 3 is all about the taper time. It's really important that you recognize during the taper phase, whether that's 3 days, 1 week, or even up to 3 weeks if it's for an Ironman or longer races need longer taper times. The body goes through some really crazy stuff, both physically and mentally. A lot of it's psychosomatic, and so I'll just talk through a little bit about what to expect during taper time and how to deal with that and get through it and toe the line in the right mental state. Number 4 would be what to focus on, and this is going to be more on race day in particular. What things do you focus on? Do you focus on the time that you want to finish at? Do you want to focus on beating so-and-so? Where do you spend your time in terms of your mental energy and focus on a particular race day? Then lastly, and honestly I think this should probably be first, after coaching hundreds of athletes over the years and top level athletes and even newer athletes that are just Twitter-pated by this sport, keeping things in perspective. And what I mean by that is just keeping sport in perspective as it pertains to the rest of your life is so critical. If this falls apart and the rest of your life falls apart because you're too focused on sport or the outcomes of sport or what have you, you get obsessed with the outcomes and progress, then ultimately things just fall apart, both with your personal life and then also with your athletic life. So just keeping things in perspective, even at a high level, is, I think, very, very important. All right, so staying motivated during training. I mean, the easiest thing to do is obviously to find friends to train with, if that's your thing, and to keep it fun. You've got to keep, at some point, a lot of the training just has to be genuinely fun for you. What's fun for one person, though, riding on a trainer in a hot garage, staring at some kind of, CompuTrainer output numbers or some kind of, I don't know, something on the screen that keeps you motivated or power numbers, heart rate numbers, whatever it is. Sometimes that's fun for people. To other people, that's absolutely miserable. So you have to make sure that you keep it fun for yourself. For swim, bike, and run, each discipline's different. You might physically enjoy swimming on your own and relaxing in the water especially on your recovery swims and really enjoying that. You might find that you don't get in the water unless you have somebody else with you in the water that's going to keep you accountable and make you swim for that whole master's swim hour. So you have to ask yourself with each discipline and even as the training kind of progresses, what's fun for me? What's motivating? What's going to keep me training? Is training with friends more frustrating because I just feel like crap because I'm not as fast as everybody else? Is it less motivating? So you just have to ask yourself that, For sure. For me, for example, running, I love to run with music. It's a time for me to get out, and I, for whatever reason, don't care all that much to run with people, particularly on my aerobic and recovery runs, or my long runs, not necessarily my intensity runs. But to me, getting out on a trail that I know well and just running with some good iTunes music is what's fun to me. But some people absolutely hate that. So you've got to find what's fun for you. Trainer riding. Most people have a love-hate relationship with trainer riding. It definitely has its time and place. When the weather's bad, when it's safer than riding out on risky roads, then the trainer or even a spin bike might be the only other option you have. So if you find that for whatever reason you can't ride outside, weather, traffic, travel, whatever, and trainer riding or even spin bike riding is the only other option, then find something on the trainer that motivates you. Whether that's watching a movie and then targeting your workout as you go, watching some good TV, using some kind of course on a CompuTrainer, riding with a CompuTrainer group, whatever it is, just find something that's most motivating to you. Putting a fan on you so it's not so miserable. There's a lot of ways to get creative with trainer riding. I get asked the question, or I have been asked the question over the years a lot, like, should I do spin classes? Should I do a spin bike? Should I ride the trainer? And I've taught a lot of spin classes over the years. I've been a spin instructor. And I definitely think, the law of specificity says you want to ride on the bike and in the conditions and the terrain that you're ultimately going to race on, at least for your A race. But that being said, if you can't do that, again, because of either it's too dark after work to ride or the traffic's too bad or for whatever reason you're just not doing it, sometimes the next best thing, going to a spin class, riding at the gym where it's a safe environment, riding at home on the trainer, sometimes the second or even the third best alternative is better than not training at all. So just keep that in mind. There's nothing wrong with spin classes. The crank length tends to be a little bit longer than what most people ride on their bikes. The fit isn't the same. You can't necessarily control your workout. But that being said, it's sometimes better than not doing any workout at all. Kind of the same with swim. If you can't swim and you're traveling, the next best thing would be to do some kind of band work, some upper body core work to at least keep those muscles engaged. And there's some great swim strength protocols out there that use band work that you can at least kind of bridge the gap. That would be the second best thing. Again, same with a treadmill. You might hate the treadmill, but if it's snowy and icy outside and you can't run, sometimes you just need to turn to the treadmill to kind of bridge that gap. Lastly would be to get a good coach, and obviously, I'm going to support this because I am a coach and have, worked for a large coaching business. But a coach, if a coach is good, they're going to motivate you in training. Not that they're going to motivate every last little workout, but they're going to definitely motivate you and not demotivate you. If your coach doesn't motivate you, get a different coach. Your coach will also keep you accountable. So you know that if you're supposed to be doing a workout, there should be a coach, if you're kind of paying for that service, that's checking in and checking to make sure that you did in fact do those workouts. All right, imagery and coping. Imagery is so important. That's just kind of visualizing what the race is how it's going to unfold. You want to visualize success. So take yourself even, months out, or definitely at least 3 weeks out headed into an A race. Take yourself through what a good day would look like in a race from start to finish. From the race week to the race morning to being fueled properly to where your kind of anxiety levels or excitement levels are. Just picture what it would feel like to go through a swim, a well-executed swim where you're not anxious, you're cruising along, sighting's good, all that. Then same thing on the bike. Picture what a good, well-executed bike looks like for you. You're in control, you feel strong, you might feel tired, but you're definitely, you are ready to race. Same thing on the run, picture success. I'd be lying to you if I said picture an easy run. As we know, runs are almost never easy in triathlon. It's all relative. So it's either going to be hard, kind of hard, or maybe not as hard as I expected. So picture yourself going through a run where the legs are fatigued, but picture how you're going to get through that. That's very important. And don't be afraid to picture that fatigue that you know you're probably going to encounter and how you're going to cope with that and how you're going to deal with that and how you're just mentally going to handle that. If you tend to have high anxiety levels going into a race, I would encourage you to go through kind of a litany of things that you could experience in terms of going wrong. Starting with the swim, from goggles malfunctioning to any kind of issue that you know that you can experience in the swim. If you're new to this sport, then I would encourage you to get out and practice open water swim so you go ahead and get through some of the feelings you get of feeling claustrophobic in murky water to kind of getting bumped and kicked around. Make sure you go ahead and get that out of the way. But more than anything, definitely expect to feel anxious, to expect to have something not go as planned. And I think as soon as you expect that, then when that does happen, when all of a sudden you smell really strong diesel, fuel from a boat in the water, which I experienced that once in one of my pro races, and it just threw me for a loop and I was kind of nauseated. Just know that when something like that happens, something above and beyond the unexpected happens, you know how to cope with it. These would be some of your most typical ones: getting kicked, getting pushed, anxiety, a full-fledged panic attack if you're kind of prone to those. The temperature being very cold or very hot. How are you going to deal with that from a wetsuit standpoint? Are you going to fill the wetsuit up with cool water to try and cool yourself off and keep your core temperature down? Sighting, if all of a sudden you feel completely lost in the lake, which I've had that happen in a pro race. I literally looked up and couldn't even see anything, and I had no idea where I was headed. Had to take my goggles off and get my bearings and calm down and figure out that I was, not alone in the middle of a lake. So go through all those different issues and figure out how mentally you would cope with them. That's very important. On the bike, we all have the fear of a flat tire. More than anything, the best thing that you can do to minimize your anxiety towards that and to also help get you through flats and mechanicals, especially on the long races where you'll keep going, is to practice changing flat tires ahead of time. It's very, very important. What are you going to do if you have a crash? Obviously, if you have a major crash, that's totally different. But if you have a slide out where it didn't really seem to affect you too much, the bike's fine, what are you going to do? Are you going to get up and keep going? Just think through some of those things. What are you going to do if you drop a water bottle or nutrition? If it's a long race and you drop a lot of nutrition, I definitely recommend you turn around, you hit the brakes, you turn around and you go get that nutrition. That can really affect your race. If you drop your electrolytes and you can't get access to electrolytes within the next 30 to 60 minutes, you definitely want to turn around and try and find those or figure out how to quickly supplement electrolytes. On the run, some of the things that you encounter: blisters. I always carry these these squishy, second skin blister pads in my special needs or in my pockets, because I've had too many blisters in races where I felt like I was running with a dagger in my foot, and it's just not worth the week or two after, especially if I have another race coming up, of dealing with blisters. So 30 seconds of ripping the shoes off, putting a nice solid Band-Aid on there to thwart a horrible blister, to me, I have found is worth it. Also from the run, most of the things we encounter on the run are either poorly pacing on the bike or poorly pacing on the run, running too fast, too early, or just not fueling properly with hydration and with nutrition. And typically these are the things you'll see is just, kind of dizziness, cramps, gut, just having all kinds of issues from the top of the GI tract down to the bottom. So just knowing ahead of time how to deal with those. That gets into a lot of race fueling and race pacing, not so much coping. But by and large, any of the things you run into, dizziness, cramps, poor gut, the best thing you can do in the long races for sure is to slow down and figure out how to cope with that, how to get on top of it. Tip number 3 is all about taper week. As I mentioned in the intro, the taper week, your body and your mind go through some funky things. You've gotten, kind of conditioned to training day in, day out, high volume. I wouldn't say addicted to training, but your body's just very used to training. And all of a sudden you're shocking it by letting it rest up. And the mind knows that it's about to put the body through some really challenging stuff. And so there's kind of this internal fight with the mind and the body a little bit. So expect that your body and your mind are going to do some funky things to you. Your mind's going to play tricks on you. You're going to go from feeling very, very tired to feeling energetic to feeling tired into having doubt to wondering if you've trained enough to wondering if you're ready to just being scared out of your mind that you can finish it. All of that. That's very normal. It's very, very normal. So expect that. Expect that you're going to be on a little bit of a roller coaster. And just kind of go with the flow. Do what you need to do to stay relaxed race week, and then strive for what we call, in textbook, this is kind of a textbook term, the ideal performance state. We're on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is you could care less and you could stay in bed and don't really care about racing, to where 10 is having kind of a full-fledged anxiety attack race week and race morning. We want to strike a balance somewhere in the middle where we're excited. That excitement's going to add to performance outcome, but we're not so overly anxious that it's going to undermine our race outcome and kind of wear us down race week and just, basically have negative effects. Race day, even race week as well, stay calm, stay focused, use mantras, do whatever you personally need to do to stay in that ideal performance state where you're excited but not overly anxious and not underexcited. You kind of need to be somewhere in the middle there. For long stuff, the really long stuff like Ironmans, like marathons, you want to make sure that you are mentally ready for battle. You're about to put yourself through some crazy stuff. So just be ready, gear up, and be excited, but also have a healthy fear of the distance. Take actions well ahead of time to know how to hydrate and to fuel, how to correct errors, how to pace. It's a long day, and we want to keep our bodies healthy. We want to have a successful day. All that being said, by the time you get to race day, don't expect that the race is going to be easy, no matter what the distance, whether it is the mile run, a sprint triathlon, a half marathon, a marathon, an Ironman. By definition, racing, for most of us, tends we're about to push our body to its limits. We're about to ask our body, our muscles, our mind, everything in our being to give it 110%. So by definition, it's going to get hard. So as long as you just mentally kind of recognize this is going to hurt because I'm going to make it hurt, then expect that. Don't expect that just because you've trained properly, just because you have a perfect pacing plan, that at some point, and typically we don't recommend that's at least not until 2/3 or 3/4 of the race, no matter what the distance, that you really start to get into kind of a mental pain cave. Just recognize that at some point towards the end, this should hurt. That's what racing is. During the race, we suggest that you focus first and foremost, at least the first 80% of the race, on your execution goals. Focus on the things you can control, on your pacing plan, your fueling plan, your hydration, your mental game. Constantly be asking yourself, am I in the right pacing plan based on what either my coach gave me or what I know I can hold to have a successful outcome? Is my hydration and my nutrition on par? Am I making mistakes? What do I need right now? Do I need fluids? Do I need fuel? Do I need nothing? Do I need to just keep going and mentally focus in the minute and keep pushing? Then we recommend you focus on targets. So executions first, just staying strong mentally, focusing on the things you can control, and then focusing on your own targets. And you're going to get these targets based on your training, based on your past race experiences. But targets are, your goals of pacing, of power, of feel, of speed, cadence, form, all of that. Focus on your targets and what you individually can handle. Again, based on your training and past race experiences. Lastly, we recommend that you focus on outcomes. At no point really going into the race, in the back of your noggin, you might have some outcome-related goals. I want to get to Kona. I want to get on the podium. I want to beat my best friend. I want to finish under 16 hours in an Ironman, whatever it is. You'll have some outcome goals out there. We recommend that you don't focus too much on those because those ultimately will just undermine your performance. So at some point, though, during the race, as you've gone from executing your goals and your targets, and those are, you've ticked those off as time goes by through the race, then at some point you can turn to outcomes. let go of the numbers to some extent. Don't let go of hydration if it's a long race and fueling, but definitely start to let go of kind of some pace and some feel and some speed targets, and just focus on digging in and making it to the finish line with everything you've got. And don't underestimate how hard you can finish a race. That's when you really just let go of things and just say, you know what, I'm going to push as hard as I can. And whatever happens here at the end, if I can beat so-and-so, if I can get, under a certain goal time, then I'm going to try for it. And just kind of minute by minute, mile by mile, push your body to its limits. Last tip would be keep things in perspective. I mentioned in the intro that to me, this is very critical for any level of athlete for long-term success, to keep training, to keep sport, to keep the balance of sport within life and within family and just within purpose of being in this world. Keep that in perspective. And those have been the athletes. The athletes that have kept things in perspective are the athletes that I've seen long-term have the greatest success. So constantly ask yourself, am I keeping things in perspective? Why am I doing this? Am I enjoying this? Am I enjoying the process for the most part? Am I enjoying these goals and the sacrifices I'm making? Who's my support crew? My wife, my husband, my family. Are they supportive of this? If they're not, you got to ask yourself those hard questions. Do I need to communicate more with my support crew of why this is important to me, and see if we can kind of come to the same goals, or maybe step back and ask yourself if, maybe I'm doing too much and leaving those that really matter to me kind of behind and not giving them enough attention in my life. Keep it real, keep it fun, keep it healthy, stay humble. There's a saying, about triathletes out there. How do you know a triathlete? Well, and the answer, punchline is wait a few minutes and they'll tell you. Triathletes, we've got a bad rap for kind of just being self-absorbed and I don't want to say not humble, but just very entrenched in this sport that we kind of forget that the rest of the world is out there when we get together and have conversations. So keep it real. Get to know your triathlete friends outside of triathlon, what they do for a living, how their kids are doing, are their kids sick, etc. That's really important, just to just kind of keeping things in perspective. Because when the going gets rough, when you get injured, when you're down and out, when you can't race, you want to make sure that you have friends outside of this sport, or that you have conversation that just isn't revolved around triathlon. All right, again, my name is Michelle LeBlanc. I'm a coach with Outrival Racing and QT2 Systems. Feel free to contact us off our website, www.outrivalracing.com, and let us know if you have any questions. Thanks for listening.